Chapter 2. The genetics of obesity. Scientists have found out that around 60 to 80% of obesity, of being overweight, is caused by genetics. So it's not just our lifestyle, but it is a genetic predisposition that causes us to be more likely to be obese. And part of the problem is what I want to show you. The DNA Nutri-Control program is modular. So you have the option to say, I want to use genetics to lose weight more effectively. Or I want to use genetics to find out what food is healthy and what food is unhealthy for me. Or I want to do both. So basically, if you want to lose weight effectively, it's the weight sensor part, this part here. If you want to eat healthy, it's this here. And both of them have a food list. So this part of this training is all about the weight sensor, weight loss based on your genetic profile. Now, first off, I need to say this does not mean you do a genetic test, you sit on the couch and you lose weight. It is a program that is going to make you do more exercise and eat less. So that's an important part. So even critics that say genetics is rubbish for weight loss, they cannot deny that these two aspects are going to be effective. However, what we do is what kind of things you eat and what kind of exercise you do, we fine-tune with genetics. So the concept I'm going to explain in a bit more detail. So obesity has two main reasons. One being too little exercise, so you don't burn enough energy, and the other one is too much food, so you get too much energy and you don't use it up. But we all know a lot of people that have exactly this kind of lifestyle, but they're not overweight. So what is the difference between people that have this type of lifestyle, why they don't react to it and others do? And for this, I would like to show you three hypothetical ladies, Kate, Lucy and Cindy. Let's say they're all the same body height and they're all young and slim. However, they have the optimal body weight of 50 kilograms. However, they have a very unhealthy lifestyle and they eat a lot of fat, a lot of fatty food for many years. And this is actually what a scientific study has also done. It took people and gave them a lot of fat. They knew it was unhealthy for people, but they wanted to see what happens. And the scientific studies saw the following effect. Some of them gain weight. Some of them gain less weight, even though they ate the same amount. And some of them didn't gain weight at all, which is kind of counterintuitive because you assumed fat has a lot of calories. If you eat more, you must gain weight. So for some reason, even though all three of them ate the same amount of fat, some of them gained weight while others did not. And scientists found this interesting and thought, what is the reason behind this? And they came up with the exclamation that you might have heard, it must be in the genes. And in fact it is. Here is a certain gene, the PPAR gamma gene and FABP2 gene, also two different types of genes. And scientists found that there are different versions of these genes. So one type of gene causes the person to, when a fatty meal is eaten, to absorb a lot of fat, as much as possible. So this one causes you to absorb a lot of fat from food. And then there's another version which causes you to be protected from this. So the body absorbs fat and eventually a gene says, sorry, no more, and the rest is in the intestine. So some are sensitive, some are protected. And the same goes for another gene. I have to say this is a very big simplification of a very complex genetic system. There are more genes involved and it's more complicated than this, but this is a very nice example that explains the concept quite well. So there are different versions. Some genes say you're sensitive to fat and others not. And now, how do we know this? Obviously from scientific publications. And let's just have a quick look at the different science behind it. And scientific studies in this genre of genetic polymorphism or genetic variations always compare a person with a genetic variation with a person that doesn't have this genetic variation. And you want to have a few hundred of these and a few hundred of these, and then you can compare. So they compared no genetic variation with a genetic variation, and the first 30 studies, it's a combination study, they looked at different ones and combined them. This here is the source, so with this you can find the study in case you're interested. They found that people with the genetic variation had already higher body weight, a higher body mass index, higher general body weight than people without the genetic variation. And as I've said, 80% of obesity is genetic. This is part of the problem, because some people have this genetic variation and they have an increased BMI already. So this genetic variation already predisposes you to be more overweight. Then one study found in the experiment, the one that I've mentioned, they just gave people more fat in the diet and saw what happened. And then they looked at how did different genetic types respond. And this was very interesting. People with the genetic variation gained weight and the ones without did not gain weight. Now scientists would say, interesting, but no way, I don't believe it. And then they say, I need a replication study, because maybe the person lied that did the study, maybe the person made a critical error in study design. So really single genetic studies are interesting, but they are not convincing to scientists that take their trade seriously. So they say, I want a replication study. And that is what happened. A larger study with twice as many people done by a different scientific group. So we are also excluding that they did something wrong and came to a wrong conclusion. Had a different population, they did the same thing, more fat, and in the end they found out people with the genetic variation increased in BMI, they gained weight, while the others did not. So two different groups on two different populations did the same thing and found the same thing. And this is when scientists say, there might be some truth to it. And preferably you would want 3 or more studies that show the same thing. And this gene, the PPAR-gamma gene, is not something that science has discovered 2 weeks ago, and there was one publication and now we've made a genetic test out of it. This gene is something that science has known for ages. There are 7,500 different genetic studies done on this gene. Not all to do with fat sensitivity, but some with diabetes and some with others. But this is just to show this is not something that was just discovered, but science knows a lot about this gene. And it has been under scrutiny by many scientists, and it's not something new. So there's a lot of strong science behind this. So how can this be explained? How can a genetic variation cause this effect of not gaining weight with fat? So if you eat a fatty meal, and this here is the inside of the intestine, you have fat in your intestine. And the body says, great, fat has a lot of energy, I can build some cell walls out of it, and the body starts to absorb it. And more fat is absorbed, and eventually a gene kicks in, again this is simplified, but a gene kicks in and says, okay, thank you, that's enough. And the rest of the fat stays in the intestine and is secreted. So no matter if this person has eaten a small amount of fat or a large amount of fat, it stays in the intestine, it's not absorbed and has no effect on body weight. So this is why some people can eat more fat without any effect. And this is what the scientific studies have shown. So why do some people gain weight? And that is because of a genetic variation disrupting this protective effect. So this genetic variation that some people have inherited disable the function of this gene, so to speak, and fat is absorbed. And actually now the gene should say, thank you, that's enough, but this function is lost and all of the fat is absorbed. And the more fat they eat, the more fat is absorbed. And excessive fat that is not used is then stored for later. And that's the problem of obesity. So this genetic variation and others like it can really influence if the fat stays in the intestine and doesn't have an effect on me, or is absorbed and stored. Good, so now we understand this, and having lots of genes that are of the negative type, where lots of fat is absorbed, is going to be detrimental if you have a lot of fat in your diet. So Kate had the negative genetic factors, and she's going to be very overweight with such an unhealthy, fat-rich lifestyle. Cindy has only one of the negative versions and a positive version, so it's less. She gained less weight than Kate, and Lucy has the perfect genetic variations, and as we've seen in the studies, these people with these genes don't gain weight when they eat more fat. And this explains, these genes explain the variance between how people react to a fatty diet. Okay, so fat is one reason. Fat has a lot of calories, but so do carbohydrates, sugars. And it's a similar story here. If you take a lot of carbohydrates and you give it to 3 people, over the years, some of them will gain weight and others will not. Again, scientists looked into it and they found the ADRB2 gene to be responsible for this effect. There is a version that makes you overweight if you eat a lot of carbohydrates, and there's another version that does not. So if you have this protection, you're less prone to become overweight with lots of carbohydrates, and if you have the risk version, you are. So we can look at the 2 different concepts together. If you have a person that, if you look at the genes for fat sensitivity, a person might have lots of fat versions, and then you also look at the carbohydrate sensitivity, and this person is protected from carbohydrate sensitivity. Here it's the other way around. If you then look at it, we would class them in the following groups. Carbohydrate burners means that they burn carbohydrates, they don't save them, but they're fat sensitive. So fat sensitive carbohydrate burner type has fat sensitive gene and carbohydrate protection genes. So Kate would be a carb burner. Then Lucy is the other way around. She has a risk with carbohydrates, but fat is not a problem, so we call it a fat burner, carbohydrate sensitive. And Cindy is somewhere in between, a mixed type. So really, by looking into the genes of every person, we can predict how a person is going to respond to a high carb or low carb, high carb, low fat, high fat diet. So what would you, ask yourself the question, what would you recommend to Kate? What kind of diet? There's low carb, low fat. What would you tell her? If she's fat sensitive, then you would recommend a low fat diet, and carbohydrates are not a problem, so she can eat more carbohydrates. For Lucy, it's the other way around. She's carbohydrate sensitive, so low carb is important, more fat, because that's not a problem. And mixed type would be balanced, so you really need to check that you have the right balance between the 2 different nutrients. Just one quick thing, I keep talking about fat and carbohydrates. What about protein? That's a very valid question, because protein is just as important. That's the 3rd macronutrient that contains calories. And it's important to keep them in check and have the right amounts for weight loss. And the reason why I don't talk about this specifically is because protein, we haven't found any genetic variations that modify how you react to protein. So as far as we know so far scientifically, everybody has the same weight gain effect from protein. So we keep the amount of protein for all people the same, because so far we don't know if we should modify it, increase it or decrease it for some people. And we do know that fat and carbohydrates are different from one person to the next, so we do modulate this. And that's why I keep protein kind of in the background. It's very important, it's the same for everyone, and that's why I don't talk about it very much. But it's an integral part of the right nutrition. So, coming back here, now we know how food and food can influence, different types of food can influence our body weight. Now about exercise. Let's take these 3 ladies, and they're all overweight, and put them on an exercise program. And this is something that people, trainers in sports studios, very often observe. Everybody does the same program, and in the end, some people have lost huge amounts of weight. So it was very effective. They responded very well to it. Others less well, and others again hardly at all. So there's a very big difference of how well your body responds to exercise. It can be up to threefold different. So just imagine you and your friend, you go to the gym and you want to lose weight. You do the same exercise every time, you eat the same stuff, and he ends up losing 3 times more weight than you. Extremely unfair, but that's just how nature works, unfortunately. So there's a big difference from one person to the next. And again, genes are responsible for this, we have found. So there are some genetic variations that make weight loss through sports very effective. The body responds very quickly. And there are other genetic variants that slow this down, so you lose weight it's very difficult to lose weight through exercise, or you might have a mixture. So, asking how effective is exercise for weight loss, for Kate, exercise is very marginally effective. She's still going to lose weight, so no doubt about that, but a lot less than, for example, Lucy, which has the optimal genes. So for her, exercise is very effective, and Cindy's somewhere in between. So people just respond differently. Now, eating less, surprisingly, has the same effect. Some people, when they eat a lot less, their weight goes down very quickly. Other people moderately, and other people hardly at all. So counting calories is a good step in the right direction, making sure you burn more than you get. But it's a bit more difficult than that, because really even the same amount of calorie reduction leads to a different amount of weight loss in different people. Again, it's genes. So you get the idea. Some people have positive genes, it's very effective. Others have negative genes, it's not effective. And others it's somewhere in between. And it's a different group of genes. So we know how effective exercise is. Not at all, not very much for her, and very much for her. Eating less is very effective for her due to her genes, hardly for her, and somewhere in between here. So for one thing, we know how carbohydrate sensitive or fat sensitive you are, and now we know how good exercise is and how good or how effective eating less is, calorie reduction. So again, what would you, ask yourself the question, what would you recommend to Kate when she's, oh, I want to lose weight, should I go to the gym? Or, oh, I want to lose weight, should I half starve myself to death and not eat anything? Here, you would recommend doing a little bit of exercise and eating a lot less, because this is the best, most effective way for her. Just think about it. If you say, just continue eating what you're eating, but go to the gym, this is the least effective way for her, which means she would have a lot of effort, very little result, and a lot of demotivation looking at other people around her that are losing weight. So really, it's a good idea to use the concept that works best, using strengths and avoiding weaknesses. Yet, you will still have to recommend exercise to her. It activates the metabolism, it's an important aspect of weight loss, but a small exercise program for her is completely sufficient. No need to put her on a marathon running regime when this is not the best way for her to lose weight. Now, how about Lucy? What would you do here? Exercise is the best, fastest, most efficient way to lose weight. So you would recommend to her, go to the gym, do an extensive program, because this is a very fast way to lose weight. And she should still eat a little less calories taken in than she burns to make sure she loses weight, but she should burn a lot more through extra exercise. And Cindy is somewhere in between. So now you've understood the concept of how genes influence us and how we can use this information to find out what you should do more of. So the question that every person who wants to lose weight faces is, should I do a lot of exercise and eat a little less? Should I eat a lot less and do just a little bit of exercise, or somewhere in between? And through genetics, we can tell you this is likely to be most effective for you. So we would balance it. We would say on average, this is what we do with our algorithms, exercise 133 kilocalories per day and eat 700 kilocalories less per day. So that's already decided. A certain amount of food, eat a lot less. So this person eats a lot less and still eats a certain amount of food. Next question, should I eat low carb, low fat, balanced, or somewhere in between. And again, with genetics, we find out what is likely to be the best. And we do this in our algorithms from scientific studies with percentages. So 48% of the calories should come from carbohydrates, 20% from protein, and 32% from fat. Now this is all a lot of numbers. This is not something you or the customer will have to work with. These are the numbers in the background that we work with, that we've determined through scientific studies, and now the program is meant to ensure that the person burns that much calories from exercise, that many calories from exercise, reduces that many calories through eating less, and from what they eat, they only eat the stuff that doesn't make them overweight, multiplying the effect. Alright, so if we now compare maybe monozygotic twins, they have exactly the same genes. One of them has done the genetic test and doesn't tell the other one that he did. And through the genetic test, we know that those two guys have the genetic type that exercise is very effective, eating less is less effective, and they are carbohydrate sensitive. So the person that doesn't know about his or her genetic programming would say, well, eating too much is the problem, so I'm going to eat a lot less, and I don't like exercise. I'll just eat a lot less and hope to lose weight. Now, from genetics, we know that's actually not really a good idea, because a little sport is counterproductive, because exercise would have been the best way to lose weight. And eating less, what he does a lot of, is less effective. So it's really wasted effort. While a person with the genetic test finds out, okay, I need to do exercise and eat a little less, this is the right program for me. So the next question, he says, oh, fat is, well, if you're overweight, you have too much fat, so fat must be bad, so I'll go for a low-fat diet. However, this person is carbohydrate sensitive. So this person knows I'm carbohydrate sensitive, so I can go for a low-carb diet and I can eat more fat. And I actually like some fatty foods, so it's not too hard for me. And in the end, this person did everything wrong based on their genetics, this person did everything right. Both of them will have lost weight. However, the results will be different. So fictitious in this case, but 5 kilograms and 12.5 kilograms. And we know from studies that have looked at genetic programs versus generic programs that the weight loss success is around 2.5 times more effective. You still have to put effort in, there's no doubt about it. It doesn't mean you're sitting on the couch and you're losing weight, but you're doing what is most effective. It's still a lot of effort, but it's more effective because you're doing the right stuff. So around 2.5 times more effective. And these guys here are the culprits, the genes that are causing these problems. This is actually a cutout from the report, so we are calling them weight gene 1 through to 8, just to simplify things. This here really is the scientific name, and also we're not really looking at the whole gene, because if we take your FABP2 gene and mine and we put it next to each other, the code will be almost identical. There are only like 1, 2, 3 different locations where there might be a different letter in my genes than in yours. And these genetic variations are common, and we know that if there's an A here, you're carbohydrate sensitive, and if there's a G here, you are fat sensitive, for example, simplified. So really what we're interested in is these genetic variations, because that is what is different from one person to the next. And that is also what scientific studies have focused on. So the result here will show A/A. Means on both genes, every person has 2 copies of a gene, one from your father, one from your mother. Both genes have at this position the letter A. And from science we then know this means carbohydrate sensitive. Down here you, for example, see GA. That means one copy has a G and the other copy has an A. So this is really the laboratory result. It's kind of like a blood analysis. There are lots of numbers and you need an expert to tell you what it means. Same here. You can have this result checked because other laboratories should find exactly the same information. This will be the same from birth to the end of the life of the person. So this is an unchanging genetic tendency. So all of the tendencies that we do test and do find out will will help you to know what is the genetic predisposition until the end of the life. So these are the genes that cause the different effects. And from these genes and from knowing science about them and the effects about them, we can then summarize what kind of information we can get from them. And this here is a summary. And I have to say, I will go through this in more detail. There is another training. It's actually a counseling meant for the customer. And I would recommend that you also watch this. It will tell you how to explain every example. Here I will just quickly jump over it because it would be too much detail. But this here is basically the summary of all of the genes, the 8 genes that we're testing, and it will tell you in the end the interesting information. So for example, do you gain weight from carbohydrates? Some very much and some hardly. Do you gain weight from fat? Hardly or a lot. So the arrow shows where this person is. So this person, you can see, is carbohydrate sensitive and fat insensitive. It might be the other way around. It might also be that both of them are higher. And some people, when you do counseling, feel disheartened if they find out, oh, I'm sensitive to everything, so I can't eat anything. This is the wrong way to understand it. And in case you see this kind of sentiment, do intervene and say, no, this is the best result that you could have, because it means you can eat both different types. So because this guy here could hardly eat any carbohydrates, only fatty stuff. So he might like some carbohydrate-rich things, but they are no longer available to him. And it might be the other way around for the other one. So really the best result that you could wish for is a balanced type. It might be more of this or more of this, but if you're a balanced type, you have more options of choosing foods that you like than if it's such an extreme result as here. So in case they feel disheartened, do intervene. How strong is your yo-yo effect, the rebound effect? So way to regain after losing weight effectively. For some people it's very strong, for others it's weak. More fat around your organs, for some people more. That's fat around the organs in the inside of the stomach, the belly. It's metabolically active, it's more unhealthy than fat around the hips. Some people have more of it and some less. How much muscle mass do you lose when you reduce calories? This is actually an interesting story. It's actually a sad story, because there was a prison in America, in the US, where the prisoners decided to go on a hunger strike. And there were some prisoners which were overweight and others which were normal weight. And they eventually starved themselves to death. What was scientifically interesting was that the ones with a lot of fat deposits as well as the normal weight ones died after around 60 days. 60 days no food, they died. And the reason was the following. If you want to use fat to break down fat as an energy source, you also need an amino acid, protein. And this is one extracted from muscle. So when you break down fat, it will require some muscle to use the energy. So what happened in these prisoners is after 60 days, the overweight ones as well as the normal weight ones, they had about the same amount of muscle mass. And after the 60 days, they ran out of muscle mass to use. And then eventually they didn't have enough strength to breathe, and eventually they died in this case. So what do we learn from this? If I want to break down fat, I also need to break down muscle protein. And for some people it's faster. Scientific studies have shown, so some genetic variations increase this effect, while others reduce it. And in this case it's much, so this person loses a lot of muscle mass, other people lose less. What to do with this information we're going to find out in a minute. So this is the kind of information we can read from genes. The next thing is behavioral analysis. That's also quite interesting. Nature has given us a system that whenever we run low in energy, low in nutrients in our blood, that a few genes kick in and create a feeling of hunger. And then the animal goes out in search of food, the caveman goes out in search of a mammoth, and we get up from the couch and go to the fridge. So this feeling of hunger is regulated by genes, and gene variations can make it stronger or weaker. So So some people with certain gene variations are here, they suffer more from not eating for a long time, and other people don't. And it's similar with the feeling of being full. So when you eat something, first the food ends up in your stomach, and then the first food fragments go into the small intestine, and that is where they begin to initiate the feeling of satiety. It's a hormonal thing. And the body realizes, I've got energy or I've got nutrients, okay, let's send a message up, thank you, no more food. And this is faster for some people and slower for others. So if this is a slow response due to genetics, again, genes modulate this. If it's a slow response, you might have already eaten 1.5 pizzas before you realize you're no longer hungry. And if it's a fast response, you might not even finish your pizza. So some people tend to overeat because of having a weak feeling of being hungry, and others don't tend to because they're immediately no longer hungry. And this is what we find out in these two here. Then, do you tend to eat a high-calorie diet because of the genes? That's interesting. If you take 100 people with a certain genetic variation, give them a buffet, and put all different kinds of food on there, and give them a plate and say, okay, now choose what you want to eat and put it on your plate. They will do that. Then you put them aside, all with their plates. And you take another 100 with the other genetic variant and tell them to do the same thing. Everybody chooses what he thinks he would like to eat. And then you count the number of calories on the plates of the people without the genetic variation and the ones with the genetic variation. And you will find that these guys have significantly more calories on their plate than these guys. So a genetic variation has somehow, people don't even understand how this has happened, but somehow this genetic variations makes these people prefer food that has a lot of fat, a lot of sugar, a lot of calories, while these guys are less prone to that. So really this genetic variation will in this case not seduce you into eating more calories, and in this case it will. So it's important to be aware of this manipulation by genes. The same goes for snacks. People have found people with a certain genetic variation tend to eat more snacks than people without. And snacks, that's a common problem. They say, I'm only eating a salad 3 times a day, why am I overweight? But then they sit in front of the television and drink a Coke and a packet of crisps, and then in the bus they're reading and eating a chocolate bar, and that's where all of these calories come from. So again, people should be aware that they tend to eat more snacks than others based on their genetic programming. So they are kind of being manipulated by their genes. Now, this is what we read from the genes, what genetic tendencies a person has. Now, there's no use in doing all of this without using this information now. And this is what the strategy part is about. So for one thing, here you can see the balance between low fat and low carbohydrate. We've already talked about this. Carbohydrate sensitive means you're low carb, and not fat sensitive. That's why this person is all the way over here. So a low carb diet is the right one for this, and a low fat diet might be right for someone else, and otherwise the arrow would be somewhere in between. Now the next question is the exercise question. I've explained to you that some people respond very well, others do not. And some people respond very well to eating less and others do not. So we look at how good does each one of those two things respond, and then we say you do that much of eating less and that much of exercise. And here this person is somewhere more in the direction of calorie reduction. Now what will never happen is that a person will get the result, exercise completely useless, forget about it, just eat less. Or the other way around, just to exercise, eating less doesn't work. This is not how this is to be understood, and this is also not true. So even if exercise is less effective, it still has some effect, and it still is important for a number of health aspects, also to make your metabolism more active. So what I would tell people that are all the way over here, they should be happy because a light exercise program is completely sufficient for them. While if it's over here, you can say, congratulations, exercise is a very good way for you to lose weight. Your body is going to respond very quickly. So we're going to do an intense program of exercise because that is going to motivate you, because you're going to get good results very quickly. Then the question of muscle mass loss. As I've said, the prisoners, remember, some people lose more muscle mass. They need to counteract this by doing muscle building exercise. That's weightlifting, circuit training, anything where you use a lot of strength and go to your limits. So if you're here, you should do more power-oriented sports. If, however, your muscle mass loss is very low, endurance sports is sufficient. So really, when a person does choose what kind of sports they want to do, they should tailor it so that they maintain their muscle mass. After all, you don't just want to lose weight so the number goes down, but you want to have an athletic body. So you want to maintain muscles while losing fat. And here are the meals. This is basically dependent on the number of, or on the intensity of hunger and satiety. If you're very prone to hunger, not eating for a long time is going to really make it difficult for you. So what we do is we recommend 5 daily meals if you have a strong feeling of hunger. Doesn't mean you can eat more, it just means you eat the same amount in smaller pieces. If you eat 3 daily meals, if you have a low feeling of hunger, you're not going to suffer much from long periods. It's actually also beneficial because with the insulin, with the long periods of not eating, the insulin reaches a certain level which improves weight loss. So this is actually beneficial, and for some people it's 4 daily meals. However, I would recommend to only say this is a recommendation, because some people have 5 daily meals and say, I have no time for this. I work, there's no time to have 5 meals. Don't worry, I drink a coffee, it suppresses my hunger, so I'm okay with this. So do make this as a recommendation, don't make it as a rule that they have to follow. It's something we would recommend to deal with their tendencies. It would make it easier, but it's not a definite rule that they need to follow. All right, and then the program has 3 different phases. Genes are not going to change. The genetic programming for you are fat sensitive is going to remain for the rest of your life. So what is special about this program is it's not something like a blood test. We found out Christmas was yesterday, that's why all your blood work is all over the place. We find out how your body is built, and you're going to remain fat sensitive for the rest of your life if you are genetically. So this program gave you insight into something that you are going to take with you for the rest of your life. And it should be the initiation for you not to decide, okay, I'll do this program because it takes 3 months and my blood work has told me I should eat this and this, and then after 3 months everything is forgotten, you throw away the report, and then you're back to where you started. But this is going to, or should be, changing your habits for the rest of your life. So the first phase is going to be weight loss phase. If I want to lose 50 kilograms or if I want to lose 10 kilograms, I go into this phase and I just stay in there. I will lose weight very quickly, and eventually I'm gonna reach the weight that I want, and then I go on to the next stage. It's longer for people that want to lose more weight, and it's shorter for people that only want to use 1 or 2 kilos. All right, the next stage is the adaptation phase. If we immediately increase the calories, some people's bodies might think, wow, great calories, I've been starving, I'll save them because who knows if I'm going to be starving again. So they start saving the calories, and they begin to gain weight very quickly, the rebound effect. Now to combat this, we need to increase the calories slowly. So you've lost weight, then you eat a little more, the exercise program is going to be less intense, and then eventually you reach the stable phase, and that is hopefully for the rest of your life. And then you have already learned what kind of food is good for you, what is bad for you, and how much you're allowed to eat. So these 3 phases exist. Some people say, around 20% of customers, by the way, I only want to know how to maintain my weight, so they can immediately go to stage number 3. Okay, and now there is the food item system. This is one of the ways of how to plan your nutrition. And for this, I need to explain the concept. Taking 2 very different types of food, rice pudding has a lot of carbohydrates, hardly any fat. bacon with a lot of fat is high in fat and low in carbohydrates. So these are both things that contain a lot of calories, but different types. So if you take a fat-sensitive person, they are going to have the same weight gaining potential from a huge portion of carbohydrate-rich rice pudding, and as they would have from a very small piece of fat. So they can eat, to have the same effect, a lot of carbohydrate-rich foods, but very small portions of something with a lot of fat. Carbohydrate-sensitive person is the other way around. So really, even though they might contain the same amount of calories, you can eat a lot more of that and less of that, or the other way around, depending on your genetic programming. So the first option of how to use the program, of how to plan your diet based on your genes, is the food item system. Now the drawbacks, and there are a different number of things, you should just know all of them and you can recommend to your customers or to the people you counsel which ones would be best. This food item system is relatively complex. It takes some time to use. However, it's very flexible and it's very effective. Now let me explain how this works. In the back of the report, you will see this list of different food items. And it's around 1,000 or a bit more. And you will see these bars here, and this is actually a cutout of one of these. This bar shows you the weight gain potential this type of food has for you. And this is personalized, so it's different for different people. What does this tell us? Multi-fruit juice is a small green bar, so it has a quite low risk of weight gain potential for this person compared to fruit jam. So, and what you also see here, 20 grams of fruit jam are going to have the same weight gain potential as 145 grams of multi-fruit juice. Also, if you compare fruit jam, 20 grams versus general fruit, 80 grams. So really, different types of food have a different response or cause a different response from your body based on your genetics. And these numbers here are the relevant ones, because a food item is one type of food. If I say I want to eat orange juice as well as bread and fried egg for breakfast, that's 3 food items. I've chosen I want to eat these 3 things because I like them. And my genes are going to tell me, orange juice, no problem, have a lot of it. Bread, you're carbohydrate sensitive, only eat a little bit please. And eggs, okay, some fat, but you're not fat sensitive. This is the concept. So any type of food is going to be evaluated based on your genes. And let's say chicken has a lot of maybe some protein or fat, too much of fat for your genes. So the program would say, that's not good for your genes, so let's just make it a very small portion, and then it's okay for you to eat it because it's so little. And then fish might be the right balance. And then you say, wow, that's a good balance, so let's increase this amount, let's make a very big portion out of it, and you can eat all of that. And then when you combine the small bad item and the good right item, in the end you're going to be very close to the right balance. So the good items are going to be so much that they dominate the wrong small items. So you can choose different types of food. The program is going to tell you this is wrong for you, it's a small portion, or this is great for you, this is a huge portion. And then the system works like this. So in the report you're going to find this table here. These numbers are again personalized, so they're different. This person during the weight loss phase can choose 14 different items. As I said, orange juice, bread and fried egg, 3 items, but 3 out of 14 I've used for breakfast. And then I might choose chicken twice and bread and tomatoes for lunch and so on. And so I can use 14 items, and by following the amounts you will have the right balance of carbohydrates and fats, and you will not eat too much. And that's the weight loss phase. And now let's look at this. So we've got 14 here, all these different types of food are available, and this person has 15 available, for example, 14 in this example, but this person specifically has 15. He says 1 time chicken, because chicken is a huge portion for this person. He invests 3 of them in bread and 2 of them in tomatoes, and that is then the ingredients for his lunch. And that would be 6 food items out of the 15 that he can eat. Now if you eat 5 meals per day, you just spread it out. You say 4 items, 1 item as a snack, 5, 1, 4. Or if you eat 3 meals, you just eat 5 every time. So really you can switch it around the way you want it. Okay, so what you do is you choose the type of food you want. It's better to choose the ones with the green bars because the portions are a lot bigger. And let me tell you, if you do it right, you are going to create a menu plan where you're not going to be able to manage to eat all 15 items, because some items might be half a kilo of something. Especially with vegetables, there are lots of berries or strawberries. Half a kilo of strawberries would be 1 food item only, and you can eat 15. So this will really teach you, if you choose something that's bad for you, it's going to be a small thing, you're going to be hungry and not very satisfied. If you choose the right type of food, you're going to be completely full and satisfied, and you're going to eat things that you like. And this is a very important education for this person, because this person from then on is going to know for the rest of my life, this is bad for me, this is good for me. And you will see this kind of table in the report. This is the diet plan. So they can use this and just write here apple juice, how much, and bread, how much, and so on. So this is the food item system. It has the drawback, it's quite complex because you need to choose and see, okay, I want to eat that many grams, and you need to calculate how, weigh it and so on. Although we've all tried it, it's a little bit of work at the beginning, but then you know how much bread 1 food item is, and you begin to get an idea of how much you can eat. But it gives flexibility, you eat stuff that you like, and it's very effective because it gets the right balance. Now the second option, which I think is, or actually we know from experience is the most popular option, is a very simple one. You just pay attention to the red and the green bars. So all you do is forget about the numbers. You say, okay, I only eat things with green, small green bars, and the red ones only once per week, only on Sunday, not at all, or exceptions. So again, with 1,000 food items, you find out which ones you like and are green, and you just eat more of them. It's easy to switch over to other stuff that you like. So this is a very easy way, and these people just don't have to do any calculations or any counting. This is a very effective way of using the program. And as you can see, different types of food have different bars. So you just choose things with the lowest bars and eat more of that. And then this is probably the easiest thing, the ready-made menu suggestions. Now this is very easy to follow. You just check out which one you want. You have a number of things, a seafood menu for example. You choose what you choose which one you like, and you just follow the instructions and you eat that. The problem is you have low flexibility. If there's something in there that you don't like, that's the problem. You would still have to eat it. And it's very effective because it's extremely fine-tuned to your genes. And this is what it looks like. For breakfast, this person, you have a number of these, but this is a whole day's menu. Some blackberries to lose weight, 288 grams, some yogurt, some pumpkin seeds, and water. And then for lunch it's this, and for dinner it's this. And again, you can use it for weight loss, for maintaining weight, and the 2 weeks in between. So you've lost your weight, next week you do this, it's a bit more, next week it's a bit more, and then to maintain weight, it's this here. And if you follow this, this is extremely fine-tuned. You have exactly the right amount of calories, the right amount of fat, carbohydrates, and so on. So this is a very easy way of following things. You still need to weigh, but again, you do this once, and next time you know. We also have the possibility, just so you know, to extend this. So we are developing a recipe book where there are around 40 such menus, daily menus you can choose, and also a number of recipes which are adapted to your genes. So the ingredients are up or down regulated based on based on your genetic programming, so that you can cook more elaborate things like chicken with pepper and rice and whatever. So there are other options for people that like this system. And then there is the fourth option, which is my personal favorite. That's the menu portal. It's an online diet planning website. Basically what you do is you take your genetic information, you log in, the program knows you're carbohydrate sensitive and you shouldn't eat more calories than X to lose weight. It's easy to use, it's very flexible, and it's also very effective. I will not go into too much detail about this because there's another training session that explains the functions. I'll just explain the concept behind it. This here is what happens when you log in. So the program knows I'm carbohydrate sensitive and I shouldn't eat more than that many calories. And then I can choose I want to lose weight. So I would click on this tab. I can also say I want to maintain weight, so I click here, or I want to gain weight. So this program is meant for all of these stages. But now I want to lose weight, I click here. And then the program will choose from 1,000 different, up to 15,000 different ingredients, depending on language, and will create a general random menu for me. And then, if I eat this, I will eat the right amount of fat, carbohydrates, and so on. And then it might say tuna, and I say, oh, I don't like tuna. Then I can just grab it and throw it away. And then the program realizes, he's throwing away some free calories. Let's use them to recalculate the others. So it shares out these calories to all of the others to make sure that, again, you're eating the right amount of carbohydrates, fat, protein, and calories. So whatever you do, it will recalculate and make sure you're doing the right thing. And all you need to do is follow the amounts that you have in your menu. Okay, right. Then it might be that you have fish fingers in your fridge and they are going to expire soon, so you have to eat them. But your genetic test says fish fingers is pretty much the worst balance of fat and carbohydrates for your genes. But nevertheless, you want to eat them now. So you decide to put fish fingers in your lunch. Then the program realizes, he's messing with the system and he's trying to put in too much fat. Then it says no problem, because it's going to recalculate all of the other types of food. Anything that has a lot of fat is going to be reduced in amount, the other ones increased in amount, to balance out that you're messing with the system. So you can eat your bad for you fish fingers, but if you eat the whole day and the way it is planned, it is going to be balanced out. And then, and this is what you see here, you can say I want to cook something elaborate. So instead of lunch for having ingredients, I really want to put something, chicken with peppers in there, and then you have a choice of a lot of different recipes. Again, the program knows how much you're allowed to eat, and it up or down regulates the amounts of ingredients. So for some people it might be a whole chicken breast that you put into the recipe. For others it would be 0.8 chicken breasts and 2 spoons of oil, and 3 spoons of oil for someone else. And you can also plan your exercise in here, by the way. So really this is a good way to track and manage everything. I'm a big fan of this, but then again, some people don't like online portals and they shouldn't be forced to do so. All right, then again, exercise. We do know how much exercise the person is supposed to do. And this is how it looks in the program. This person should, for example, burn 124 kilocalories per day. This number is going to be different, higher for people with more exercise program and lower for others. Now, this doesn't mean this person has to do exercise every day, because virtually no one has time to do that. But I can say, okay, I do this, but I want to do exercise 4 times a week. Then you find this table in here, 4 times per week. And then there is aerobics. If I do 4 sessions of aerobics, it would be 34 minutes. I say, okay, let's do that. I write down, first session on Monday, 34 minutes of aerobics. Then mountaineering, great, 30 minutes. That's my second session. And then I do soccer with my friends, and actually do 2 times 26 minutes. I play for 1 hour, and that's my session 2 and 3. So this way I've planned my exercise, and if I follow this regime, on average I will have burned 124 kilocalories per day. Now, there are different versions of this program. Some are tailored for sports studios, so the different types here would be more tailored towards the different options we have at sports studios. Other versions are more for pharmacies or for at home, where you have more free time activities. So you might see differences from what I'm showing you here, a different selection of different types of sport, just so it is tailored to the use. Sports studio just wants to focus on sports studio options, while others want to focus on free time activities. And then down here you can plan your sport. So you will find something like this in the table, and you just write aerobics here, how long, on Wednesday you want to do soccer, and so on. Okay, in the Nutri-Control program, the portal where you can log in, you can plan it yourself as well. It gives you a bit more flexibility. It shows you how much you have already planned for this week, and then you can say I do modern dancing on Wednesday lunchtime or weightlifting on Saturday. And you can click longer and the bar will go up, and you can see if you've reached your mark, or even if you do more than you should be doing. So again, exercise planning is quite easy with the portal. And then, as I've explained, some people have low muscle mass loss and some people have high muscle mass loss. So when you counsel them and the muscle mass loss is extensive, you can see it here. If this is here, they should do more power-oriented sports. So weightlifting, power, requiring things where you reach your physical limit and you need a lot of strength.